If you're a fan of visual novels or murder mystery games, chances are you've heard of Danganronpa. What you may not know, however, is that there's a very large active community of fan-made Danganronpa projects, or Fanganronpas. Project Eden's Garden is one I've been following for a very long time, and having finally gotten a chance to really dive into the game as of Chapter 1's release, I thought I'd share my thoughts. I'll start off with a brief spoiler-free review before going into a longer analysis or critique with full spoilers. So let's jump right into it. I want to refrain from making too many direct comparisons to Danganronpa because the developers have expressed a desire to set themselves apart from the source material somewhat, so let me just get all the comparisons out of the way right now. The art is beautiful. I think I might like it even more than the official DR art style, as it has the best parts of that along with more realistic proportions. There's also this subtle bloom or blur effect on the sprites that just makes them really nice to look at. In the same vein, the UI looks great. I like how it has its own visual flair despite taking clear inspiration from DRV3's UI. Overall, the game just looks very polished and aesthetically pleasing. The music's also amazing. The composers really nailed that funky electropop vibe that Danganronpa has with those tracks, but also really enjoyed the strong classical music motif PEG has going on. With the DR games having such predictable formulas when it comes to characterization, plot, etc., I really appreciate the way PEG breaks convention, so much so that I would have added it as another example in my previous video about subverting expectations if I could. I think there's a good segue into spoiler territory, so obligatory spoiler warning for all of Chapter 1. Now, Ava's talent reveal. I like this for two reasons. One, it added a lot more depth to her character, as initially it seemed like she'd just be that mysterious but ultimately boring character that's fun to theorize about but doesn't offer much else. So, an ultimate Matley who hates her title and lied about having a dangerous talent so that people wouldn't look down on her. Now that's an interesting character, way more so than just Kirigiri 2.0. 2. This reveal was the first sign that the game wouldn't have clear roles like protagonist rival and protagonist helper the way Danganronpa does. I think Wolfgang and Ava were the perfect first victim and killer respectively for that exact reason. Funnily enough, those two were both my first guesses for potential victim and killer, but I told myself, nah, there's no way they'll be killed off that early, so I was pleasantly surprised that the writers weren't afraid to go there. On the topic of characters, I think Damon is a great protagonist, and I like the rest of the cast for the most part, but I feel like it is pretty clear which characters are meant to be plot relevant and which ones are kind of just there, like Mark, Eloise, Desmond, etc. Not to mention how Mara basically disappeared from the story in this chapter. I know I literally just praised the decision to kill off Wolfgang and Ava first, but they were also by far the most interesting characters, so I can't help but wonder who's going to pick up the mantle. It seems they're setting up Diana, Kai, and Grace as equally important moving forward, but none of them really do it for me. But who knows, I could change my mind. Also sorry, but I find Cassidy incredibly annoying. Maybe she just talks too much because I don't feel that way about the other comic relief characters like Jet. Moving on to the actual investigation and trial. Overall, everything's definitely up to par in terms of length and complexity, but I did have a few issues I want to talk about. After investigating the storage rooms, Damon will say verbatim, "Ava, let's go upstairs," but I was blocked from doing so because heading upstairs would be a bad idea. I was stuck running around in circles for like 15 minutes to the point where I thought I'd encounter a bug just because I hadn't noticed a bloodstain in the hallway, which isn't even highlighted when you hold enter. This is a pretty easy fix too, like either tweak Damon's dialogue or just make sure the player can't investigate the storage rooms until they've seen the bloodstain. Also, I don't really get why the doors to the storage rooms aren't labeled during gameplay, despite them being clearly labeled A, B, C, and D on the map. I feel like there are a few huge leaps of logic during the trial. One, when it suggested that Wolfgang must have been hallucinating because of his crazy behavior, and that's how they figure out he was drugged. It'd make more sense if Damon brought up the injection scar first, then someone suggested that Wolfgang was drugged with the hallucinogen. 2. Damon presenting the camera in game console as the conclusive evidence that Ava was able to spectate the bullet room. Honestly, it felt like a bit of an asshole when Damon basically went, "I have no idea if this is even possible, but I can't think of another explanation, so it must be this." And he happened to be 100% correct. I genuinely think even something as ridiculous as Ava used trigonometry to calculate the precise angle at which to hold the console so that she could see inside the boiler room through the reflection on the screen would have been a more logical explanation, because there is no reason to believe it's even possible for students to access the security camera footage. As cool as I think it is conceptually, the argument altercation is way too unforgiving. I'm sure I'm not the only player who essentially soft-locked themselves by setting it to the highest difficulty. Sure, that's on me, but I had no idea the trial would have a bullet hell minigame, nor that it would be so difficult. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I just gave up and watched the rest of Chapter 1 on YouTube because I simply could not beat the minigame. I think either an option to change its difficulty or skip it altogether would be great, because as it stands I'd have to replay the entire trial, which is around 4 hours long, from the very beginning just because I'm bad at bullet hell games. I'd like to end this segment with more praise because I really do think this is a great game and hope I don't come across as overly critical. It just has so much sauce, like the rim light on a character's fights during the trial, or all the awesome animations and VFX. In summary, despite a few personal gripes, Project Eden's Garden good game, and you should definitely play it if you haven't. I can tell that so much passion was poured into this project, and for a whopping $0.00, there's really no excuse not to check it out. Thank you for watching despite my very sickly voice. I know I can't stick to the niche to save my life, but I hope you enjoyed this more informal review style video. Really, I just want an excuse to talk about a cool game, so you can expect to see videos like this again in the future, alongside more devlogs and video essays of course. Those just take longer to make. Until then, see you.